Admiral Li Wu-jin stood in the massive crystal chamber and felt very small for the first time in his life. The walls rose high above him and caught the light from 3 different suns that shone through the transparent dome. Around him sat 12 alien races that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Each one looked at him with eyes that showed they had already made their choice about humanity. The Nexus Prime station floated in empty space between star systems and served as the meeting place for the Galactic Senate. Lee had traveled here with Ambassador Park So-young and Dr. Kim Tae-ho to represent all of Earth. They had prepared for months, but now he wondered if it had been enough. The Krithian speaker stood up from his floating platform. His skin looked like polished metal, and his voice echoed through the chamber without any emotion. He spoke the common galactic language that humans had learned 50 years ago when the aliens first made contact with Earth. "We have watched your species for 5 decades," the Krithian said. "We have seen your wars and your destruction of your own planet. We have studied your history and your nature. Today we must decide if humanity deserves to join the galactic community or if you must remain isolated in your small solar system." Lee felt his hands shake, but kept them still at his sides. Park So-young stepped forward and bowed respectfully. To each alien delegation, she had spent years learning their customs and knew exactly how to address each race. Honored members of the Senate. Park said, "I speak for all humans when I say we are grateful for this opportunity. We know we have made mistakes in our past, but we have also learned from them. We offer our knowledge and our friendship to the galaxy." A low sound came from the Vorthan delegation that Lee recognized as laughter. The Vorthans looked like giant insects with 4 arms each. Their leader spoke next. "Your friendship," the Vorthan clicked. "What can a species that still fights among itself offer to civilizations that have known peace for millennia? You humans have been at war with each other for your entire recorded history. Even now, your planet has conflicts and your people suffer from poverty and disease." Dr. Kim stepped forward and activated his data pad. Holographic images appeared in the center of the chamber showing human achievements. There were pictures of art and music and scientific discoveries. There were images of humans helping each other during disasters and working together to solve problems. "Yes, we have had conflicts," Kim said, "but we have also created beauty and wonder. We have explored our solar system and reached for the stars. We have learned to work together despite our differences. Our diversity makes us stronger, not weaker." The Zephyrian representative floated in a sphere of glowing gas. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind through leaves. "Your diversity is chaos," she said. "You cannot even agree on how to govern your own world. You have hundreds of different languages and thousands of different beliefs. How can such a fractured species contribute to galactic harmony?" Lee knew this was his moment to speak. He had commanded fleets in space and led soldiers in battle, but this felt harder than any fight he had ever faced. The future of humanity depended on his words. "You call our differences chaos, but we call them strength." Lee said, "When humans face a problem, we approach it from many angles. We think in ways you might not expect because we come from different backgrounds. This has helped us survive and grow on a difficult world." The massive Gornax delegate rumbled like distant thunder. His rocky skin moved as he spoke. "Survive," he said. "Your survival instincts make you dangerous. You fight when others would negotiate. You compete when others would cooperate. Your species is too aggressive for peaceful coexistence. We fight when we must protect what we love," Lee replied, "but we also know when to make peace. Human history is full of former enemies who became friends. We learned to work together because we had to. The same challenges that made us fighters also taught us to be partners." The ethereal luminary speaker glowed brighter as she spoke. Her people were made of pure energy and had been the most mysterious race in the galaxy. "The humans show potential," she said. "Their emotional depth and creativity are remarkable. They have accomplished much in a short time compared to our species. A moment Lee felt hope, but then the Saurian delegate stood up. His reptilian features showed contempt as he looked down at the human delegation. Potential means nothing without wisdom, the Saurian hissed. These humans are children playing with dangerous toys. They developed nuclear weapons before they learned to leave their planet. They poisoned their own air and water while building their civilizations. They cannot be trusted with galactic technology. More alien voices joined in the debate. The spider-like arachnids spoke about human unpredictability. The crystalline quartzians worried about human emotional instability. The gaseous nebulans questioned human intelligence compared to their own ancient knowledge. Park tried to counter each argument with facts and figures about human progress. She showed how human technology had advanced and how human society had become more peaceful over time. Kim presented data about human scientific achievements and artistic creations. Lee spoke about human courage and determination in the face of impossible odds. But Lee could see in the alien faces that their minds were already made up. They had invited humanity to this trial, but they had never intended to accept them. This was just a formality to make their rejection seem fair. The Etherian delegate spoke again, and her voice carried sadness. I believe the humans deserve a chance. She said, they are young, but they show promise. With guidance, they could become valuable members of our community. The Crithian speaker silenced the chamber with a gesture. The debate is finished, he announced. It is time to vote on the question of human membership in the Galactic Senate. Each race will cast one vote. To join the galactic community, humanity needs approval from at least 7 of the 12 member races. Lee held his breath as each alien delegation cast their vote. The process took several minutes as each race announced their decision in their own language before translating to the common tongue. The Crithians voted no. The Vorthans voted no. The Zephyrians voted no. The Gornax voted no. The Saurians voted no. The Arachnids voted no. The Quartzians voted no. The Nebulans voted no. The Titanoids voted no. The Hegemony voted no. The Collective voted no, but only the Etherians voted yes. The final tally was 11 votes against humanity and 1 vote in favor. Lee felt the weight of failure crush down on him. 50 years of preparation and hope had ended in complete rejection. The Crithian speaker stood again, and his metal face showed no emotion as he delivered the verdict. By the authority of the Galactic Senate, humanity is denied membership in the galactic community. Your species will remain confined to your solar system. Any human vessel that attempts to travel beyond your star system will be destroyed. Any human transmission beyond your solar system will be blocked. You are hereby isolated from galactic civilization until such time as your species demonstrates significant evolutionary progress. Lee felt Park grab his arm to steady herself. Kim stared at the floor in shock. The human dream of joining the stars had been crushed in a single vote. The trial is concluded, the Crithian announced. The human delegation will be escorted back to their vessel and return to Earth immediately as the security escorts surrounded them. Lee looked back at the Etherian delegate. She glowed dimly with what he somehow knew was regret. She had been their only friend in this chamber of judges, and it had not been enough. The crystal chamber began to empty as alien delegations departed for their home worlds. Lee walked between his escorts and wondered how he would explain this failure to the billions of humans waiting for news. They had placed their hopes in him and Park and Kim, but it had not mattered. The galactic community had decided against Earth, and there was nothing humanity could do about it. At least that was what the aliens believed. 6 months had passed since the verdict, and Earth had become a prison planet surrounded by invisible walls. Captain Nam Hyun-woo stood on the observation deck of the space station Luna 7 and watched alien monitoring posts blink like cold stars at the edge of the solar system. Each post contained sensors and weapons pointed directly at Earth and warned any human ship that dared to venture too far from home. The journey back from Nexus Prime had been the longest trip of Nam's life. He had piloted the diplomatic vessel that carried Admiral Li Wu-jin and the others home after their defeat. The silence in the ship had been louder than any engine noise as they traveled through space that would soon be forbidden to all humans. Now, Nam commanded the most advanced exploration vessel in the human fleet, but he could only use it to patrol between Earth and Mars. The ship that had been designed to carry humans to distant stars was trapped like a bird in a cage. Every day he looked at star charts and planned routes to worlds they would never see. Engineer Cho Min-ji worked in her laboratory deep inside Luna 7 and tried not to think about the alien watchers. She had spent years designing faster engines and better life support systems for ships that would explore the galaxy. Her blueprints covered the walls, but now they seemed like drawings made by a child who dreamed of flying. The aliens had made their point very clear after the trial. Any human technology that could travel beyond the solar system would be detected and destroyed. Any attempt to build space stations near the outer planets would be met with immediate action. Humanity was to stay close to Earth and behave like good prisoners. But Minji had not stopped working. In fact, she had started working harder than ever before. The alien technology they had been allowed to study during the diplomatic process had given her ideas that the aliens probably wished they had kept secret. Human engineering was different from alien engineering, and Minji was beginning to understand how different it really was. General Yoon Jae-sung walked through the command center of the new Stellar Defense Initiative and felt anger burn in his chest every time he looked at the alien monitoring stations. The aliens had given humanity advanced warning systems and defensive weapons during the years before the trial. They had called it a gesture of good faith, but now Yoon knew it had been a way to keep humans busy while the aliens prepared their judgment. The defensive systems were impressive, but they were designed to protect Earth from outside threats, not from the aliens themselves. The weapons could destroy asteroids and defend against enemy ships, but they were no match for the technology that surrounded the solar system like a net. Yoon had been a soldier his entire life, and he understood when he was outgunned. The alien fleets that enforced the blockade had weapons that could destroy planets and shields that could deflect anything humans could throw at them. Any direct military action would result in the complete destruction of Earth. But Yoon also understood that sometimes the best way to fight a superior enemy was to avoid fighting them directly. Dr. Kim Tae-ho had returned from the trial a changed man. The xenobiologist who had once been fascinated by alien cultures now spent his time studying alien weaknesses. He worked in a secret facility beneath the Gobi Desert where human scientists took apart every piece of alien technology they could find. The aliens had left behind equipment and materials during their 50 years of contact with Earth. Most of it had been gifts or trade goods, but some had been abandoned or lost. Kim's team had collected everything and began the slow process of understanding how it worked. What they discovered surprised them. Alien technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also incredibly predictable. The aliens had been using the same basic principles for thousands of years, and they had become comfortable with their superiority. Their technology was powerful, but it was not creative. Human technology was different. Humans had been forced to innovate constantly because they had limited resources and hostile environments. Where aliens used brute force, humans used cleverness. Where aliens relied on established methods, humans tried new approaches. Kim began to realize that human thinking was fundamentally different from alien thinking, and that difference might be the key to humanity's survival. Engineer Cho Min-ji made the first breakthrough 3 months after the blockade began. She had been studying the quantum mechanics that powered alien faster-than-light travel when she noticed something the aliens had missed. Their technology assumed that space and time were fixed constants, but human physics had discovered that space and time could be bent and twisted. What if a human ship could exist in multiple states at the same time? What if it could be in two places at once or phase between dimensions? The aliens would detect a ship in normal space, but they might miss a ship that existed partially outside normal space. Minji began working on prototypes in secret. She used salvaged alien components combined with human innovation to create something completely new. The work was dangerous, and several test models exploded or disappeared entirely, but slowly, she began to understand the principles involved. Captain Nam. Hyunwoo volunteered to test the first successful prototype. The device was small enough to fit in his personal shuttle and would only work for short periods, but it represented hope for the first time since the trial. When Nam activated the quantum phase generator, his shuttle began to flicker in and out of existence. The ship's sensors could barely track his position, and alien monitoring equipment would see nothing but empty space. For 30 seconds, Nam existed in a state between dimensions and felt like he was flying through a dream. The test was a complete success, and Minji immediately began scaling up the technology for larger ships. General Yoon organized the secret construction program that would build humanity's hidden fleet. Using asteroid mining operations as cover, he established shipyards throughout the solar system. Workers were told they were mining rare metals for Earth's defense systems, but they were actually building ships that no alien had ever imagined. The construction sites were scattered across hundreds of asteroids and hidden inside natural formations. Each site built only small components that were then assembled at secret facilities on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. The alien watchers saw increased mining activity, but assumed humans were simply trying to improve their living conditions. Dr. Kim worked with teams of scientists to develop new weapons and defensive systems. They could not match alien firepower directly, but they could create weapons that worked in ways aliens had never encountered. Humans began developing quantum torpedoes that could exist in multiple dimensions and energy shields that could phase between realities. The work was slow and dangerous. Several research teams were lost when experiments went wrong and their equipment tore holes in space-time. But each failure taught them more about the forces they were trying to control. Admiral Lee Woo-jin coordinated the entire operation from a hidden command center on Titan. He had returned from the trial, determined to prove that the aliens had made a terrible mistake in underestimating humanity. Every day he received reports from teams scattered across the solar system, and every day he became more convinced that humans could surprise their captors. The alien monitoring posts continued their silent watch and detected nothing unusual. They saw mining operations and research stations and defensive preparations, but they saw nothing that threatened their blockade. Their sensors were designed to detect conventional technology, and they completely missed the quantum signatures of human innovation. Ambassador Park So-young worked with resistance cells on Earth to prepare for the day when humanity would reveal its true capabilities. She had maintained contact with the Etherian delegate who had voted in humanity's favor, and learned that some aliens were beginning to question the Senate's decision. The Etherians had watched human behavior during the blockade and were impressed by human determination and creativity. They had expected humans to become depressed and give up their dreams of space exploration, but instead, humans had become more focused and more innovative than ever before. Park carefully fed information to the Etherians about human progress without revealing the full scope of the secret programs. She wanted the aliens to understand that humanity was not broken by their rejection, but she could not let them discover the quantum technology until humans were ready to use it. As the 6-month anniversary of the blockade approached, Captain Nam completed the first test flight of a fully quantum-capable warship. The vessel could exist in normal space or phase into quantum dimensions at will. It could appear and disappear without warning and could strike targets from impossible angles. The ship was still crude compared to what Minji envisioned, but it proved that human technology could advance beyond anything the aliens had achieved. More importantly, it proved that humans could build weapons the aliens could not detect or understand. General Yoon watched the test flight from his command center and smiled for the first time since the trial. The aliens had isolated humanity to prevent them from becoming a threat to galactic civilization, but their isolation had actually accelerated human technological development. Humans had been forced to innovate without alien guidance or restrictions, and the results were beyond anything the Galactic Senate had imagined possible. 2 years had passed since the Galactic Senate's verdict, and the solar system had become something the aliens never expected. Commander Han Da-eun floated inside the massive asteroid facility known as Haven 7 and watched thousands of human workers build ships that defied every law of alien physics. The asteroid belt had become humanity's secret empire. What appeared to be simple mining operations were actually the largest shipbuilding program in human history. Entire asteroids had been hollowed out and converted into factories and research centers. Hundreds of facilities connected by quantum, tunnels that allowed instant transportation between distant locations. Da-eun commanded the belt operations and reported directly to Admiral Lee Woo-jin on Titan. Every day she coordinated the work of 50,000 people who officially did not exist. Their families on Earth believed they were working on standard mining contracts, but they were actually building the fleet that would change humanity's fate. The work had accelerated beyond all expectations because humans had learned to think in ways that aliens could not imagine. Where alien technology relied on massive power sources and brute force, human technology used quantum mechanics and dimensional manipulation. A human ship could exist in multiple realities at once and draw power from the spaces between dimensions. Scientist Bae Joon-ho had perfected the stealth technology that kept human activities hidden from alien sensors. His quantum masking systems could make entire asteroid facilities appear to be empty space or natural formations. The aliens saw what their instruments expected to see, while humans built an invisible civilization right under their watch. Bae worked in a laboratory that existed partially outside normal space and time. His experiments with quantum fields had led to discoveries that would have amazed even the most advanced alien scientists. He had learned to bend space around objects and make them undetectable to any known scanning technology. The breakthrough had come when Bae realized that alien sensors were designed to detect objects that existed in normal space. They could not see objects that existed in quantum superposition or phased between dimensions. Human stealth technology did not just hide ships from view, but actually removed them from the reality that aliens could perceive. Pilot Shin Ye-jin had become the first human to fly a fully dimensional ship. The vessel could exist in normal space or phase into what humans called shadow space, where the laws of physics worked differently. In shadow space, a ship could travel faster than light without using the energy-intensive methods that alien technology required. Ye-jin had volunteered for the first dimensional flight, despite knowing that previous test pilots had been lost when their ships phased into dimensions from which they could not return. The mathematics of dimensional travel were still theoretical, and every flight was an experiment that could end in death or worse. But Ye-jin had always been willing to take risks that others would not accept. She had been a test pilot before the blockade and had flown experimental aircraft that pushed the limits of human engineering. Now, she flew ships that pushed the limits of reality itself. The first dimensional flight had lasted only minutes, but it had proven that humans could navigate between realities in ways that aliens had never attempted. Ye-jin had flown her ship into shadow space near Mars and emerged near Jupiter, having traveled impossible distances in moments. The technology was still dangerous and unpredictable, but it gave humans capabilities that no alien race possessed. A human fleet could appear anywhere in the galaxy without using the established hyperspace routes that aliens monitored and controlled. Captain Nam Hyun-woo had been promoted to command the first fully operational stealth warship. The vessel looked like a standard human exploration ship, but it contained technology that could phase between dimensions and weapons that could strike targets from multiple realities simultaneously. The ship's quantum torpedo systems could fire projectiles that existed in several dimensions at once. The torpedoes would phase through shields and armor that existed in normal space and detonate inside enemy vessels where they could not be stopped. No alien defensive system had been designed to handle attacks that came from outside normal reality. Nam had spent months learning to fly a ship that could exist in multiple states simultaneously. The navigation systems required him to think in ways that human brains were not designed to handle, but he had gradually learned to perceive the spaces between dimensions where his ship could hide. The training had been exhausting, and several pilots had suffered mental breakdowns trying to comprehend dimensional navigation, but Nam had persevered. He understood that the future of humanity depended on mastering technology that aliens considered impossible. Dr. Kim Tae-ho had established research stations throughout the outer solar system where human scientists studied captured alien technology and developed countermeasures for every known weapon system. The aliens had provided Earth with examples of their technology during the diplomatic period, and Kim's teams had taken everything apart to understand how it worked. What they discovered was that alien technology was powerful but predictable. The aliens had been using the same basic principles for thousands of years and had never needed to innovate beyond incremental improvements. Their weapons and shields operated according to well-established patterns that could be analyzed and countered. Human technology was different because humans had been forced to innovate constantly. Earth was a hostile world compared to most alien homeworlds, and humans had developed engineering solutions that prioritized efficiency and adaptability over raw power. When human innovation was combined with captured alien components, the results exceeded anything either species had achieved alone. The research stations were hidden inside the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, where alien sensors could not penetrate the electromagnetic interference from the gas giants. Scientists worked in facilities that existed partially in shadow space and could phase out of normal reality if alien scouts came too close. Engineer Cho Min-ji had become the leading expert on dimensional engineering and had developed ships that could exist in up to 7 different dimensional states simultaneously. Her latest designs could phase between realities so quickly that they appeared to be in multiple locations at once, confusing enemy targeting systems and making them nearly impossible to hit. Minji's work had progressed far beyond the simple stealth systems of 2 years earlier. She had learned to manipulate the fundamental forces that held reality together and create ships that operated according to principles that aliens had never discovered. Her engineering teams built vessels that were as much art as science, and that challenged the basic assumptions of galactic civilization. The dimensional ships required crews that had been trained to think in non-linear ways and to navigate spaces that existed between normal realities. The training program had a high failure rate, but the pilots who succeeded became capable of tactical maneuvers that no alien could predict or counter. General Yoon Jae-sung had expanded the secret fleet to over 2,000 vessels scattered throughout the solar system. The ships were hidden in asteroid bases and dimensional storage facilities that existed outside normal space. Most of the fleet consisted of small, fast attack vessels, but there were also larger ships capable of carrying entire armies between star systems. The fleet had been organized into strike groups that could appear anywhere in the galaxy and conduct operations before alien forces could respond. Each group contained ships with different capabilities, including stealth scouts, dimensional bombers, and reality phase assault vessels that could attack targets from impossible angles. Yoon had also established training programs for ground forces that would be needed when humans finally ventured beyond the solar system. The soldiers trained in combat suits that could phase between dimensions and weapons that could strike targets in multiple realities. Human military doctrine had evolved to take advantage of dimensional technology in ways that alien strategists had never considered. Admiral Lee Woo-jin coordinated the entire program from his command center on Titan and monitored alien activities throughout the galaxy through a network of quantum sensors that could observe events in normal space without being detected. The sensors had revealed that several alien races were beginning to question the Senate's decision to isolate humanity. The Etherians continued to advocate for human inclusion in galactic civilization and had presented evidence that humanity was advancing technologically at an unprecedented rate. Other races had begun to worry that isolating humans might create a more dangerous situation than accepting them as junior members of the galactic community. But the major powers of the Senate remained convinced that humanity was contained and no longer represented a threat to galactic stability. They continued to maintain the blockade and assumed that humans would eventually accept their isolation and focus on developing their own solar system. The aliens had no idea that human technology had advanced beyond anything in galactic civilization, or that humans were preparing to demonstrate exactly how wrong the Senate had been. As the second anniversary of the blockade approached, alien patrol ships began detecting unusual energy readings from the outer solar system. The emergency session of the Galactic Senate convened in chaos as reports poured in from across the galaxy. Admiral Kang Dong-wook watched the alien communications from his dimensional command ship and smiled grimly as he saw panic spread through the most powerful civilizations in known space. 3 months had passed since human forces had begun operations beyond the solar system, and the galaxy would never be the same. What had started as reconnaissance missions had evolved into something the aliens could barely comprehend. Human ships appeared and disappeared without warning, striking targets across dozens of star systems before vanishing back into the dimensional spaces where alien sensors could not follow. Kang commanded the human space forces from a vessel that existed primarily in shadow space and could phase into normal reality only when needed. His command center was connected by quantum tunnels to every human ship in the galaxy, allowing instant communication across impossible distances. The aliens had spent weeks trying to locate his flagship and had no idea they were looking for something that existed outside their understanding of space and time. The first major engagement had occurred when alien forces tried to investigate the destruction of patrol ships near the Outer Rim territories. A battle fleet of 50 alien warships had converged on the last known position of their missing scouts and found themselves facing an enemy that fought according to no known principles of warfare. Captain Lim Subin had led the attack in her dimensional fighter squadron. The small human ships had emerged from shadow space directly inside the alien formation and begun attacking from multiple dimensional angles simultaneously. The alien ships found themselves under fire from weapons that seemed to come from empty space and could not target enemies that existed in multiple realities at once. The battle had lasted less than 10 minutes, but the results had shattered alien confidence in their military superiority. 47 alien warships had been destroyed while the human squadron had suffered no losses. The surviving alien ships had fled back to their nearest base with reports that made no sense to their commanders. Lim's fighters had used dimensional phase technology to attack enemy ships from inside their own shields. The quantum torpedoes had materialized inside alien hulls and detonated in spaces where no defensive systems could intercept them. The alien crews had died without understanding what had killed them. Lieutenant Colonel Oh Seung-ho had planned the tactical operations that followed the initial engagement. His strategies relied on principles that alien military doctrine had never encountered because they assumed that battles took place in normal space according to predictable physical laws. Oh's battle plans included simultaneous attacks on targets separated by hundreds of light-years, coordinated strikes that appeared to come from impossible directions, and defensive maneuvers that made human ships appear to be in multiple locations at once. The aliens had no tactical response to enemies that could exist in 7 dimensions simultaneously. The second major battle had occurred when the Krithian Empire sent a full battle fleet to investigate the destruction of their outer rim stations. 200 of their most advanced warships had been deployed with orders to locate and destroy whatever was responsible for the attacks on their territory. Admiral Kang had personally commanded the human response to this threat. He had positioned his forces in dimensional space around the alien fleet and waited until they were completely surrounded before beginning the attack. The aliens found themselves trapped in a sphere of human ships that could strike from any direction and retreat into spaces where alien weapons could not follow. The battle had been more challenging than previous engagements because the aliens had adapted their tactics based on reports from earlier encounters. They had developed new sensor arrays designed to detect dimensional anomalies and had modified their weapons to fire into multiple dimensional layers simultaneously. But human technology had continued to evolve during the months of conflict. Engineer Cho Min-ji had developed phase shifters that could move ships between dimensional states faster than alien sensors could track. Her latest designs allowed human vessels to exist in quantum superposition, where they could attack and defend from multiple realities at the same time. The Krithian fleet had been destroyed in a battle that lasted 3 hours and demonstrated the complete superiority of human dimensional technology. The aliens had managed to damage several human ships, but had been unable to achieve any decisive victories against enemies that could phase out of normal space whenever they were threatened. News of the defeat had reached the Galactic Senate within days and had caused panic among races that had considered themselves invincible for millennia. The idea that a species they had rejected as primitive could destroy their most powerful fleets challenged everything they believed about their own superiority. Dr. Kim Tae-ho had established intelligence networks throughout the galaxy that monitored alien communications and provided real-time information about enemy movements. His operatives used quantum communication systems that could not be detected or intercepted by alien technology and had infiltrated major alien worlds without being discovered. The intelligence reports revealed that several alien races were beginning to question whether humanity should continue to be treated as an enemy. The Etherians had been advocating for negotiations since the first human attacks and were now joined by other species that feared the consequences of continued conflict. But the major powers of the Senate remained determined to crush human resistance before it could spread to other species. They had begun mobilizing the largest military force in galactic history with the intention of destroying Earth and ending the human threat permanently. The alien armada consisted of over 5,000 warships drawn from every major civilization in the galaxy. The fleet included planet-killer weapons and reality disruption devices that could destroy entire star systems. The aliens intended to make an example of humanity that would prevent any other species from challenging galactic authority. General Yoon Jae-sung had prepared for this moment by positioning human forces throughout the galaxy in locations where they could strike at alien supply lines and support facilities. His strategy relied on mobility and surprise rather than direct confrontation with the massive alien fleet that was converging on the solar system. Yoon's forces had already begun attacking alien shipyards and weapons depots in raids that demonstrated human ability to strike anywhere in the galaxy without warning. The attacks had delayed alien preparations and forced them to divert resources to defend their own territories instead of focusing entirely on the assault against Earth. The dimensional raids had also served to demonstrate human capabilities to alien populations that had been told their governments were fighting primitive barbarians. Video recordings of human ships phasing through solid matter and attacking from impossible angles had spread throughout the galaxy, despite official attempts at censorship. Pilot Shin Ye-jin had led many of the deepest penetration missions that struck at targets in the core worlds of major alien civilizations. Her ship could travel through shadow space to emerge in heavily defended systems where no enemy was expected, and conduct operations before alien forces could respond. Ye-jin's most successful mission had been the destruction of the Saurian Central Command Complex on their homeworld. She had materialized her ship inside the heavily shielded facility and detonated quantum charges that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The explosion had destroyed the command center while leaving the surrounding city untouched in a demonstration of precision that had terrified alien leaders. Ambassador Park So-young had maintained communication with moderate alien factions throughout. the conflict and had begun negotiating ceasefire agreements with species that no longer wanted to participate in the war against humanity. Several minor races had already withdrawn from the Galactic Alliance and declared neutrality in the conflict. Park's diplomatic efforts had revealed that many alien species were more afraid of their own governments than they were of human military power. The demonstrations of human technology had shown that the Galactic Senate could be challenged and defeated, which had encouraged independence movements on dozens of worlds. As the alien armada approached the solar system, Admiral Kang prepared for the decisive battle that would determine the future of both humanity and galactic civilization. His forces were outnumbered by more than 10 to 1, but they possessed technological advantages that could overcome any numerical disadvantage. The human fleet had been positioned in dimensional space around the solar system, where they could emerge at any point to attack the alien formation. Each human ship could exist in multiple realities simultaneously and coordinate attacks across dimensional barriers that aliens could not cross. Captain Nam Hyun-woo commanded one of the assault groups that would strike at the alien fleet when it entered the outer solar system. His ships had been modified with the latest dimensional technology and could phase between realities so rapidly that they appeared to be everywhere at once. The aliens expected to face desperate resistance from primitive ships defending their homeworld, but they had no idea they were about to encounter the most advanced military force in galactic history. President Ryu Haewon stood before the assembled representatives of 47 worlds and felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. The Great Hall on New Geneva Station had been built to accommodate diplomatic meetings between human colonies, but now it hosted the first session of what would become the Human Stellar Commonwealth. 3 years had passed since the Battle of Sol, and the galaxy had been transformed beyond recognition. The alien armada that had come to destroy Earth had been defeated so completely that only 30 ships had escaped to carry news of their defeat back to their home worlds. The demonstration of human military supremacy had shattered the foundations of galactic civilization and created a new order with humanity at its center. The battle itself had lasted only 6 hours, but those hours had changed everything. Admiral Kang Dong-wook had commanded human forces that seemed to exist everywhere at once, appearing from dimensional space to strike at the alien fleet from impossible angles. The aliens had found themselves fighting an enemy that could attack from 7 dimensions simultaneously, while remaining untouchable in spaces their weapons could not reach. The alien fleet had been torn apart by weapons that materialized inside their ships and detonated in spaces where no shields could protect them. Captain Nam Hyun-woo had led assault groups that phased through solid matter to plant quantum charges inside enemy command centers, while pilot Shin Ye-jin had commanded fighter squadrons that attacked from multiple realities at the same time. The battle had ended when Admiral Kang's flagship had emerged from shadow space directly in front of the alien command vessel and delivered an ultimatum that had been broadcast throughout the galaxy. Surrender immediately or face complete annihilation at the hands of technology that made alien civilization obsolete. The surviving alien commanders had surrendered rather than face total destruction, but their defeat had already triggered revolutions across dozens of worlds. Species that had been suppressed by the major galactic powers for centuries had risen up against their oppressors, inspired by the example of human resistance and armed with weapons that human agents had provided. Ambassador Park So-young had coordinated the diplomatic efforts that followed the military victory, establishing relationships with moderate alien factions and negotiating the terms under which former enemies could join the new galactic order. Her work had prevented the complete collapse of interstellar civilization, while ensuring that human interests remained paramount. The Etherians had been the first major alien race to formally ally with humanity, recognizing that their original support for human membership in the galactic community had been vindicated by subsequent events. Their decision had encouraged other species to seek accommodation with the new human hegemony, rather than face the consequences of continued resistance. Dr. Kim Tae-ho had established the Institute for Galactic Studies, where human and alien scientists worked together to understand the implications of dimensional technology for the future of civilization. His research teams had begun developing applications for quantum manipulation that would revolutionize everything from space travel to manufacturing. The technological advances that had begun as military necessities were now being adapted for peaceful purposes. Cities that existed partially in shadow space, where overcrowding was impossible, and environmental damage could be reversed instantly. Transportation systems that could move people and goods across galactic distances in moments rather than months. Engineer Cho Min-ji had become the director of the Dimensional Engineering Corps and supervised projects that previous civilizations would have considered impossible. Her teams were building megastructures that existed in multiple realities simultaneously and could tap energy from the spaces between dimensions. The most ambitious project was the construction of a galactic communication network that used quantum tunnels to provide instant communication between any points in the galaxy. The network would make centralized government of galactic civilization possible for the first time in history and ensure that human authority could be maintained across impossible distances. General Yoon Jae-sung had been appointed as the first Minister of Galactic Security responsible for maintaining order across the 47 worlds that had joined the human stellar commonwealth. His forces used dimensional technology to respond instantly to threats anywhere in human space and had demonstrated their capabilities by ending several attempted rebellions before they could begin. The former Galactic Senate had been dissolved and replaced by the Human Colonial Council, where representatives from each member world could participate in governance under human oversight. The system allowed alien species to maintain local autonomy while ensuring that major decisions remained under human control. President Ryu addressed the assembled delegates and reflected on how far humanity had come from the species that had been rejected by the galactic community. The vote against Earth had been intended to keep humanity isolated and primitive, but it had instead created the conditions for human technological and military supremacy. 3 years ago, the Galactic Senate decided that humanity was unfit to join galactic civilization, Ryu said to the assembled representatives. They believed our diversity made us weak and our conflicts made us dangerous. They chose to isolate us rather than accept us as equals. The delegates listened in silence as Ryu continued her address. Many of them had been present at the original trial and remembered the contempt with which their species had dismissed human appeals for membership in the galactic community. The Senate made that decision because they could not understand that our differences are our greatest strength, Ryu continued. They saw chaos where we see creativity. They saw weakness where we see adaptability. They failed to recognize that human civilization had developed solutions to problems they had never needed to face. The Etherian delegate glowed brighter as Ryu spoke, acknowledging their species' early recognition of human potential. The Etherians had maintained their alliance with humanity throughout the conflict and had been rewarded with full partnership in the new galactic order. Today we gather not as conquerors, but as leaders of a new form of galactic civilization, Ryu announced. We offer membership in the human stellar commonwealth to any species that shares our commitment to diversity, cooperation, and progress. We will not repeat the mistakes of the old Senate that rejected applicants based on fear and prejudice. Several alien delegates shifted uncomfortably as they remembered their own roles in the decision to isolate humanity. The Krythians and Saurians had been among the most vocal opponents of human membership and were now petitioning for inclusion in the Commonwealth under terms that would have been unthinkable during their era of dominance. But membership in our Commonwealth requires more than simple application, Ryu continued. Species that wish to join us must demonstrate their commitment to the principles that make human civilization strong. We welcome diversity, but we will not tolerate oppression. We encourage independence, but we will not permit aggression against peaceful neighbors. The terms for Commonwealth membership had been designed to prevent the concentration of power that had made the old galactic order possible. No single species would be allowed to dominate others, and all members would be required to respect the rights and autonomy of their neighbors. Commander Han Da-eun had been appointed as the first director of colonial development, responsible for integrating new member worlds into the Commonwealth economic and technological systems. Her experience managing the secret construction programs during the blockade had prepared her for the challenges of coordinating development across dozens of different worlds and species. The integration process involved sharing human dimensional technology with trusted allies while maintaining strict controls to prevent its use against Commonwealth interests. Species that demonstrated their loyalty and compatibility with human values were gradually given access to more advanced technologies that could transform their civilizations. The Vorthons had been among the first to request full technological integration after their government had been overthrown by rebels who had been inspired by the human example. Their new leadership had embraced human principles of diversity and innovation, and had transformed their rigid hierarchical society into a more flexible and creative civilization. The transformation had not been easy, and several species had struggled to adapt to the new galactic order. The Gornaks had attempted to maintain their traditional authoritarian system and had been excluded from the Commonwealth until they demonstrated genuine political reform. The Quartzians had initially resisted human authority, but had eventually accepted limited membership after their economy had collapsed without access to Commonwealth trade networks. Captain Lim Subin had established the Commonwealth Space Guard, responsible for maintaining security in the spaces between member worlds. Her forces used dimensional patrol ships that could respond instantly to piracy or aggression and had virtually eliminated the traditional threats to interstellar commerce. The Space Guard had also been responsible for exploring the regions beyond known galactic civilization where other intelligent species might be encountered.